Hi, everyone. Mike Haas along with Saints sideline reporter Jeff Nowak. Day 4 in the books. Saints off tomorrow. And then Monday, put the pads on. So we're going to talk about two T's, Taysom and Tipton. Mason Tipton. And we'll begin with Taysom Hill. And it's the typical can do everything kind of thing. But literally, there is a newness to it. Like I'm watching him, he's with the fullbacks in the blocking dummy drill, and I turn and he's with doing a wide receiver deep out. And even Dennis talked about it. There is a sense of, hey, new offense, new toy. How do you use Taysom? And as he said, you can use him everywhere.
Yeah, I think DA was listing the positions he's played, and it really, if you've seen that kind of Cream Bigham's clip where he's just like, fullback, running back, safety, defensive coach, defensive backs coach. Yeah, but that's just what he is, and that's what when you're Clint Kubiak walking in the door, for a guy who likes a lot of misdirection, likes to make things look really complicated and then run a really simple play on the backside. Taysom's the perfect player for that because he can do so many things, and that's what when I watched last year's offense, you didn't see that enough, right? You have the most complex player in terms of what he can do, and you only used him in the most basic of ways.
And somewhat predictable,
yes.
right?
Very predictable. Very predictable. And that's what I think is going to be the biggest difference for Taysom is you don't know what he's going to do. And even if he doesn't do anything exciting, the defense has to account for it. And that's what we've seen so far in camp. I'm excited about how they're going to use him. I don't know what the numbers are going to look like, but he's going to force defenses to account for him in this scheme in ways that I don't think he did in the past. And we've seen that throughout camp so far.
And not so much where we really haven't seen him is at quarterback. QB power, QB sweep, QB draw, that kind of thing. As Dennis said, he can do that. We know he can throw it if he has to, but let's work on the things that maybe he not necessarily doesn't do well, but hasn't done that often.
Yeah, and that's the thing is he can go in there and run that QB power play. The offensive line knows how to run it. The offense knows what it is, and that's always going to be there. But you got to find ways to incorporate him. If you go back to 2020, one of the first plays you had in that season was a throwback pass to Taysom Hill where he went down. Can't remember who he threw it to, but it was about a 40-yard completion. Have you seen anything like that since that day? No, and so it's okay, I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more stuff like that.
And the other T was Mason Tipton, undrafted free agent out of Yale. There's always what we call camp darling. You just kind of wait and see who it's going to be. And that's not somebody that the media anoints, but there's certain plays. The guy just made a couple of big plays today. Spencer Rattler, deep out touchdown, another big pass later. So he seems to be the guy. And Coach Allen didn't know a ton about him through the draft process, but they did know one thing, speed, and we've seen that.
Speed and smart. He went to Yale. DA said, he's not just Yale smart, he's also football smart, and those are two different things at times. Every year there's someone in that wide receiver room that kind of jumps out at you, right? And whether it's speed, whether it's size, they have to find a way to separate themselves. And so far it's been Mason with not just the speed, but the hands. When he's gotten the ball thrown to him, he's caught it. He's been able to create separation. He seems to be Nate Peterman's favorite target. I don't know how many completions Nate Peterman has had in camp, maybe 5 or 6. At least 5 of those have gone to Mason Tipton. And he's really been a guy who's created a buzz about himself on that second team. I think he had 4 catches today in team drills, right? I think there was only something like 15 completions total. So that kind of tells you. And a handful of those have been deep downfield. Just Spencer Rattler caught him on a deep kind of post route in today's practice. And, he's a guy that is probably looking at a practice squad spot, but that's a win for a UDFA player. I think that's what we kind of lose track of. We're like, who's going to make the roster? Who's going to get cut? If you can secure a practice squad spot for yourself as a UDFA in your rookie season, that's a major win. And I think he's, if I was trying to pick somebody as kind of handicapping, who's that surprise player in the wide receiver room that has a chance to stick around? It's got to be him.
And finally, let's talk about that wide receiver room. We knew it was deep coming in, but now you throw in a Mason Tipton and Cedrick Wilson, Stanley Morgan, and you already know about Olave and Rashid and Bub Meads, the rookie. Man, there's some Equanimeous St. Brown. There's a lot of competition there.
Yeah, and there's interesting veterans. I think Cedrick Wilson is a guy that I think fans, if fans were out here, they would be reacting to it because he, I think, has kind of entrenched himself as that third wide receiver right now. And obviously A.T. Perry, guys that are going to be involved and you're going to keep around. But, you have 2 young receivers in Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed leading that room. I think Cedrick Wilson is someone who offers a lot of upside in terms of just understanding the offense, right? Like this offense is going to have a lot of similarities to what the Dolphins were doing last year. That's where he was. Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave are going to have a lot of similarities to what the Dolphins do with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, right? So he just kind of works into that well. He can play all three positions. He's big. He can block. Just a good example of like the misdirection. The Saints had a play today where they loaded up big on the right side. For all the world, you would say, oh, this is a run to the right. Instead, it's a bootleg, a naked boot, and you find Cedrick Wilson by himself on the left side. Derek Carr got the ball to him, and that's the type of play that it's like, okay, yeah, you want a guy who can make that play, but also understands like how to sell it.
Right.
And I think he did that well. So, yeah, he's a guy that I think people might be overlooking, but he's really, I think, solidified a spot for himself early on.
So the Saints, again, will have tomorrow off, their first day off, and then Monday put the pads on here at UC Irvine with Jeff Nowak. Deuce McAllister, Bobby Ayer will join us as well. Mike Hoss right here for WWLAMFM.com. Always from the Odyssey app. Get all of your coverage in one spot.